I'm not even going to edit this video. I'm just going to record it and upload it right away. First of all, I was wrong. My prediction was very incorrect. Now, I think my reasonings for it was justified. It made sense. It wasn't just the polls. There was also many reasons why I think Donald Trump did objectively run the worst campaign of his political career, but things worked out in his favor. And I'll explain why. I'll explain why Donald Trump won, and I'll explain why Kamala Harris lost. Donald Trump, ultimately, while running the worst campaign of his career, was able to keep a certain message. He couldn't bring up the populism that someone like me liked. You know, the bringing back the jobs, getting rid of the bad trade deals, we're going to rebuild the country. He couldn't bring that up because Joe Biden ultimately succeeded in a lot of those fights. Whether you want to admit that or not, it's true. Joe Biden invested in infrastructure for the first time in decades. Donald Trump promised he'd do that, but Joe Biden did do that. Joe Biden has overseen the greatest increase in manufacturing jobs and the greatest investment. Investments are important. If Kamala won, we'd potentially be seeing a manufacturing boom in this country. But I think Donald Trump is going to derail that, specifically if he gets to do the policies that he wants to do, like the tariffs and like the mass deportations, which would have massive economic impact, right? But going back to the campaign, Donald Trump, all he had to say was, we're going to do the tariffs. We're going to do mass deportations. And Democrats failed to counter that narrative. Democrats, one, conceded on immigration. They conceded on immigration. Yes, we also agree brown people are bad and we hate them more than Donald Trump. We are going to build the wall that we've been attacking for 8 years. So Democrats failed on the immigration fight because they failed to argue against the right-wing perspective. We're actually more right-wing on immigration than Donald Trump. No, you're not. And the people don't believe you. Not only that, but the Democrats could not control the narrative of the economy, which was honestly, I think, the real deciding factor. I understand inflation is not good. I understand that housing costs and gas costs are up. But Kamala Harris actually had policies to deal with that shit. Anti-price gouging laws that we've seen in multiple states across the country. Increasing taxes on the wealthy, but at the same time being very moderate. For example, the unrealized capital gains tax only affecting people with assets over $100 million. Increasing housing supply to make housing more affordable by making sure supply meets demand. This is common sense shit. But you know what? The Democrats did not control the narrative. The Democrats had a situation where Donald Trump's vice presidential nominee was the most disliked motherfucker to ever touch that position of vice president, most likely. The most. He was disgusting to look at. He was smarmy. He was hard to listen to, J.D. Vance. And Democrats could have ran ad after ad after ad showing J.D. Vance attacking Donald Trump. They could have. They could have went hard on the Jeffrey Epstein shit, for example. Because Donald Trump is besties with Jeffrey Epstein. We all know that. Donald Trump is friends with Diddy. He's outright said it. They could have ran ads with that clip from The Apprentice saying, Donald Trump, I love Diddy. And with the caption, Donald Trump loves Diddy. But they could have done that. But they didn't go hard on the Epstein shit. You know why? Because the Democratic Party still embraces Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, who lost in 2016. But we still gave her a speaking slot at the Democratic National Convention. Why? Why? She lost to Donald Trump. Now we can add that Kamala Harris lost to Donald Trump, and she's the first person to ever lose the popular vote to Donald Trump. But it's not like Donald Trump expanded his base of support. Like I said, it's looking like he's going to get a little under what he got in 2020. But ultimately, he's real close to what he got in 2020. Meanwhile, Democrats, our numbers went down like almost 10 million. We got to understand why that happened. We got to understand why we lost Latinos. I don't think it's an identity politics thing. I don't think Donald Trump did some amazing thing for Latinos that made him love him. You know who did well with Latinos in 2016 and 2020 particularly? Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary did well with Latinos. You know why? Because most Latinos are working class people. Many of them are immigrants or recent immigrants. And the Democratic Party took the line of, we actually hate immigrants just as much as Donald Trump. So, the people that gave a fuck about their family, that might be undocumented, or the people that they're recently immigrated here, but they still care about their immigrant community. Those people did not have a single candidate representing them in the presidential election. They didn't. We abandoned them. And also, because they're 80% working class, the economy matters to them a lot. And with the dominant narrative being inflation and high prices, and what has Donald or Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, what have they done about it? They've done a lot. They've done what they needed to do. Those prices are down. Inflation is down. Wages are up. But they couldn't communicate that. And Donald Trump's minimal populism of saying, blame the illegals and we're going to do tariffs is going to bring so much money. And whenever he was asked a question, he couldn't answer it straight. Oh, how are you going to deal with inflation? We're just going to drill, baby, drill. We're the highest fucking oil producers in the world. But Democrats couldn't control the narrative. And Bernie Sanders did well with Latinos because he didn't run a campaign. Here, let's talk about the Florida Senate election. The person that ran for Florida Senate, every time she opened up, I think in her website, it was one of the earliest things, I'm from Nicaragua. And I hate Nicaragua, or I hate the government. I hate the governments of Venezuela. I hate the governments of Cuba. I'm actually super hawkish on them, and I want to invade them. I want more sanctions. That's what these motherfuckers think Latinos are going to fall for. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. You had Bernie Sanders, a Democratic socialist, had socialist in his name. Whether you liked it or not, whether you're a socialist or not, but he talked to the issues that mattered to working class people, and that's why he performed well in the Democratic primary. That's a fact. That's a fact. Because 80% of Latinos are working class. So you want to win them over, and honestly, you want to win some of the white folks over, the black folks that we lost over, which we didn't lose a ton of black votes, but if we want to win those groups back, we need an economic populist message that they can at least feel like we give a fuck about them. Because, yes, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had a little bit of populism in them. And policy-wise, they were the best presidents that we've seen, Joe Biden was the best president that we've seen in decades, except for Gaza. Gaza's a big thing, and we're going to get to Gaza. But on the economy, they passed wonderful policies. Invested in America. But we couldn't communicate the notion, the vibe that we give a fuck about them. It's all vibes. It's all vibes. Politics is all vibes. And we failed the vibes check. Also, I would say this. Gaza was a big problem. Fuck Joe Biden for supporting a genocide in Gaza. I'm not going to say fuck the voters for feeling demotivated by it. I would disagree with the idea of voting for the other side. But I'm not going to say fuck the voters. It's on us to not commit a fucking genocide. It's not regular people or even Democratic Party insiders that decides that. It's Joe Biden. But motherfucker should have been banging at his door saying we need to change course. Not in October, not in November, not in September, but on fucking October 2023. November 2023. They should have changed course a long time ago. But Joe Biden, the one ideological thing in his fucking body is support of Israel. And Kamala Harris was weak on the issue, trying to both sides and saying, we need to end this war, we need a ceasefire. But you couldn't even say that sentence without prefacing, but we need to bring the hostages home. Guys, we need to bring the hostages, which we do. Bring the hostages home is good. Nobody should be a hostage. But can you just say, I'm anti-genocide, I'm anti-war, without having to be like, but guys, don't worry, I'm not crazy. I'm not a bad guy. It should be clear. It should be clear. We lost a bunch of Muslim community strongholds in Michigan. They went to Trump, a lot of them. They went to Trump. And Trump is out here saying, Benjamin Netanyahu, Bibi, finish the job. Finish the job. Believe me, we're not going to see progress on Gaza. It's going to get worse under Donald Trump. And there's going to be more conflict in the West Bank. Because that's what Sheldon Adelson's wife, a major Trump donor, wants. And Sheldon Adelson, during Trump's first term, got to write the Israel policy. And now his wife will. And she wants the West Bank annexed. Because she's old, and death is at her door, and she wants to see more Palestinians slaughtered. She does. And Donald Trump will give her anything. Because Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about genocide. Donald Trump allowed the Saudis to slaughter the people of Yemen. He funded it, he supplied it, and when he was given a bill by Democrats and Republicans, Mike Lee and Bernie Sanders, to stop our support for the genocide in Yemen, he didn't give a fuck. He vetoed it. So yes, Democrats failed on a bunch of fronts. We lost the narrative, we couldn't win the vibes, and you know what? Donald Trump did some shit right for campaigning. He didn't expand his base per se. He had it fickling out. His rallies were getting smaller. People were less interested in him. He had a ton of old man moments. Genuinely, J.D. Vance was a horrible pick. He did not expand his numbers. I think total numbers, and we're going to see by the end of it. But he reached out to a lot of people. We laughed at the Aiden Ross stream. But then Dana White is glazing Aiden Ross at the victory party. Joe Rogan's a fucking idiot. He is. But Donald Trump went on his show. Number one podcast in the country. Donald Trump went on and had a glaze sesh. On Twitter, of course, Elon Musk is a fucking horrible person and owns the platform and has been destroying the platform. But him jerking Trump off to hundreds of millions of people every day probably has a bit of an impact. Maybe not in turning people out to vote potentially, but in framing the narrative. Framing the narrative. Democrats have to do better on that. And Democrats have to embrace left-wing economic populism. Embrace the unions. Embrace working class movements. We need to get away from weak centrist bullshit. We need to get away from embracing rhinos, Republicans like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. Because the only people that like them are liberals. Only people. There's no conservative that's like, yeah, Liz Cheney, I fuck with her. They abandoned her a million years ago. Her time with the party is over. Adam Kinzinger getting mad at Hassan for saying Democrats should change course on things like immigration. Brother was against sanctuary cities. Brother voted to repeal Obamacare. To take away healthcare for millions, tens of millions. And this is the guy we're looking at for political advice and guidance? Fuck that. Kick the rhinos out. Dick Cheney's a war criminal and should have never been fucking embraced. Donald Trump got to pretend to be a dove. Throughout this entire video, I'm explaining that he wasn't. But the fact that we had Dick Cheney on our side, that helps the narrative. Anyway, we got to focus on 2026. We got to focus on 2028. We got to change course. We got to embrace populism. That's the way forward. And we got to survive the Trump years. And good luck to us. By the way, the tariffs are going to be bad. It's going to be like a $3,000, $4,000 new tax on everybody. The mass deportations are going to cause labor shortages in important industries like agriculture, where 40% are undocumented, 40% of workers. So expect food shortages, labor shortages, increased prices. Good luck to us. Make your money now while Biden's president, because you're going to have to use it, a lot of it, when Trump is president. I can tell you that.